So yesterday was a big day. It was, I think, literally called Protest Day. Like, I think it's like a sort of unofficial holiday for protesting. And there were a lot of protests. There was a lot of protesting. I heard about Protest Day like weeks ahead of time, and I did not expect there to be as much participation and fervor as there was. But then, of course, Trump hit everybody with a curveball and did something that just destroyed the markets overnight, and they are not recovering. And so here we are. Yesterday and today, this is continued, by the way. It's not just a one-day thing. There have been record-breaking, legendary protests across the country against Trump for the demolition of our market and economy that he has done. And the reason why this is going to no doubt elicit a lot of fervor from at least not MAGA, but at least the normies who voted for him, is the fact that they voted for him on the main issue of economics, and now he is letting them down colossally on that particular issue. I'm really curious to see if this lets us find out how much of Trump's supporters were MAGA cultists and how many of them were just misled normies. Oh, Elon is calling for the protesters to be arrested? Not elected, arrested? Of course he is. He's an un-American fascist who's now serving as an oligarch in our government. How fantastic. Regardless, though, I've got this BBC video here, not that kind, that discusses the anti-Trump protests and how widespread they are. And I actually have not looked into this much. All I've seen is some video and footage and, like, granted what are likely some somewhat biased tweets, or I should say blue sky posts, not tweets. But I am really interested to see what's actually going on here. Like, is this going to be as big of a protest event and as big of a populist uprising against Trump as people are talking it up to be, or is it kind of being exaggerated? I really want to find out. Let's see.
One of President Trump's most senior advisors has expressed his hope for a zero tariff situation between the US and the European Union as the impact of Donald Trump's swift and wide-ranging tariffs start to take effect. Speaking via video link at a political gathering in Italy, Elon Musk said he could see a future where there was a free trade zone between the two economies. As it stands, the EU will have to pay a 20% levy on all imports into the US.
This is basically the hyper MAGA types getting everything they've ever wanted. The hyper MAGA types, your white nationalist types, are some of the dumbest people in the world of politics. They truly are. They don't understand economics. All they care about is the idea of preserving white identity and Christian nationalism and all that stuff. So one thing they're really opposed to is globalism, like global trade and, inter-country commerce and, immigration. Issues like this get them really hot and bothered. And so the idea of us basically destroying all our relationships with our trade partners and forcing Americans to buy American and forcing industries to produce American, even if it's not possible, even if it will destroy our country to attempt to do so, it's everything these people have ever wanted, because they don't want America to have any reliance or association with, frankly, the rest of the world. The futures markets show that the Dow market will open 1,500 points down tomorrow. Ooh! Hot potato. Things are getting worse. That's what I like to see. I hope it keeps getting worse at this point. I need Trump supporters to really realize how badly they fucked up.
World leaders have continued to react to the new economic order, with the British Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer and the French President Emmanuel Macron promising to coordinate their positions on any retaliatory action. Meanwhile, tens of thousands of people have marched in dozens of US cities in protest against Donald Trump and his policies since his return to the White House. Well, I'm joined now by Peter Draper, the Executive Director for the Institute for International Trade at Adelaide University. Peter, thank you very much for joining us here on BBC News. Australia itself has been hit with baseline tariffs of 10%. The Prime Minister
Those protests are pretty big. Damn, okay. So I saw. Damn, okay. So I saw footage that was from the sky, but it showed maybe this many people. And I was like, damn, okay, that's a pretty big protest. You know? I didn't realize it was this many people, and we're not even seeing. I thought this was the edge of the group of people in the image I saw. But. Wow, okay, so there's a lot. Like a lot of fucking people here. Holy shit. That is a massive protest. Like, that is huge, dude. Like, can I get rid of my... When you recognize that that's not even everybody, and that there are dense parts of this crowd that continue off camera, on the left and right and up, it's like, whoa. And this is just one place where there was a protest. It was apparently 100,000 people in D.C. protesting.
In dozens of US cities in protest against Donald Trump and his policies since his return to the White House. Well, I'm joined now by Peter Draper, the Executive Director for the Institute for International Trade at Adelaide.
The right's immediate response to this, I can already predict it, will be, look how triggered these liberals are, look how triggered they are. But the reality is these people have been trying to do this big victory lap of, we have the mandate of the people, we have the mandate of the people, the left is cooked, there is no left. And now we're seeing these massive protests. Ooh, you know what they're also going to say? They're going to say the protesters were paid by George Soros, too. Because they still have to deny the, existence of the left having any level of popular support among, a significant amount of people. So they have to push the idea these are all paid actors and also push for their arrest at the same time. Which I guess makes sense in their worldview. Like, if they're paid actors trying to besmirch them or something, and from their perspective they would want to arrest them, but they're still insane. Chuds are already saying it. Yeah, I understand how they think and what they're going to argue pretty well. They're very predictable people.
University. Peter, thank you very much for joining us here on BBC News. Australia itself has been hit with baseline tariffs of 10%. The Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese, said the nation wouldn't introduce its own tariffs in return. So what do you make of the position that Australia finds itself in now?
I think it's the correct decision that the Prime Minister has taken. Imposing our own tariffs would amount to self-harm, and that's the basic position the government has taken. And retaliating against the United States would invite further retaliation.
Something you got to keep in mind is all the countries that are counter-tariffing us aren't tariffing our entire industry. They know what a tariff is. They know it is only self-harm, and it's only hurting your own people when you tariff a country. And so they're doing specified tariffs on industries that would hurt America the most and hurt their people the least. Yeah, there is an Australian alternative to this product, but we buy a lot of it from America right now, so we're going to tariff that, make it more expensive than the Australian alternative, and people are just going to buy Australian instead, but it's going to hurt America back pretty hard because of the lack of sales they're going to be getting on their products being sold in Australia. The tariffs are definitely not ideal. Ideally no one would be tariffing each other in this situation, at least not unless it's hyper surgical and for good reason. But the blanket tariff thing that Trump does, including on inputs, is so stupid. No one else is doing it back, not because they're weak or afraid, but because what Trump is doing is breaking his own hand for the sake of bruising the nose of another country. These other countries aren't going to break their hand to bruise Trump's nose back, you know? Instead, they're going to bide their time and win this war by attrition. And they're going to win this trade war. The whole world is going to beat America in this trade war because it's us against the world here, and we are losing.
And trying to cut some sort of special deal would be a deal with an administration that essentially can't be trusted. So there's really no good options here. And what the government is doing is to double down on its diversification.
How effective are these protests? In actuality, it's been months and not much seems to have worked in weakening Trump's influence. I think, depending on the time and the political landscape, protesting is more or less effective. I think right now it's very effective for getting people to see that the nonsense talking points about the Republicans having a mandate of the people is not true. To show that there is, in fact, a lot of rage over what's happening right now and you should be upset and it's okay to be upset. I think that's a valuable message right now, especially on these issues. And then other times, protesting might not be too effective depending on the issue. Like, you shouldn't protest with the goal of changing Trump's behavior. That's not going to happen. The Republicans aren't going to change or falter because of our protesting. They have no motivation to. They have no incentive to. But it can move people over if they see how widespread and how quickly growing the pushback against Trump is getting to be. How few people truly are deranged enough to think that Trump is good for the economy right now.
Strategies which have been in place for some time, while at the same time putting in place policies to build economic and trade resilience. So I think a pretty comprehensive response and quite a defensible one.
Because Australia quite often has to navigate between its ally, the US, and the regional power of China. So how are they going to strike the balance best for the country of Australia?
That's rough.
Yeah, that's
what a
always
tough spot.
A balancing act. And one should recall that a couple of years ago, China also coerced Australia. And at that time, about 40% of our exports went to China. To put that into perspective, about 5% of our exports go to the United States. So we're far less exposed to the US market, and we can therefore, outside of a few sector and product stories, particularly beef exports to the US, we can take the hit, relatively speaking. In the case of China, when they coerced us...
This is what he's talking about right now, is the surgical tariffing. You tariff specific industries that hurt the US harder than it hurts Australia. So you wouldn't want to tariff something that Canadians don't have an alternative to and need and really need. You know what I mean? Or not Canadians, Australians. I'm thinking the Trudeau stuff. But yeah, Canadians, Australians, they're all non-American to me, okay? All the same. All the same to me, bro.
Again, to just double down and take the hit and diversify, and that's what most commodity exporters particularly were able to do. But the bottom line, I think, on the foreign policy front is that this Trump initiative draws the region, generally speaking, closer to China. This is a golden opportunity for China to cement its regional relationships and displace the United States.
How funny...
And what of the relation?
How perfectly MAGA and so perfectly Trump would it be for him to run a decade-long political career fear-mongering about China? China, the Democrats, they're so friendly with China. They love them. They really do. They really do. And then meanwhile, Trump nukes the economy and single-handedly allows China to overtake the U.S. in every single way imaginable. How funny would it be if that was how everything here ended? Trump, gets his political career by fear-mongering about China and then hands China everything that he fear-mongered about. That would be so perfectly Trumpian.
Chip, between Australia and the United States, the two countries have been allies for years. How concerned are you about the relationship as we move forward?
Very concerned, I would say. So, yes, we are a key US security ally in the region. We're not the only one, of course. Japan, South Korea, the Philippines, all are equally concerned. And reading the Washington tea leaves with growing alarm, and particularly the growing influence of the MAGA right in US foreign policy making, within which the isolationist trend, I think, is increasingly evident. What would that mean for
such a goofball.
Security settings going forward? Well, there's a very famous Australian book that I'm rereading at the moment called Fear of Abandonment.
Look at the face he makes as he destroys the economy. Hunched over this desk, frog-like frown, resting bitch face he's got. Like, look at that like, that is a frown. That is his resting face. It's just that bitchy little frown. Just hunched over that desk, writing a bill that will destroy the economy. Look at him go.
And I think that it is moving very much to the fore. We are very exposed and very concerned about it.
Peter, thank you very much. Fear of abandonment. I will look that up. That's Peter Draper, the Executive Director for the Institute of International Trade at Adelaide University. President Trump's tariffs will affect many countries, including Scotland, which has a long history of exporting products like whiskey and salmon. But will American consumers continue to buy those luxuries after the prices go up? Our reporter David Wallace-Lockhart has been speaking to people in...
The tariffs are not only ruining the market and fucking up inflation, but on top of that, the tariffs are going to make things more expensive. On top of whatever, like, shrinkflation happens already. Like, it's going to be there is going to be a confluence of so much harm to the economy that hits the average American the hardest all at once. We're going to see, like, record numbers of middle-class families dropping down a tier or a few tiers. Like, we're going to see the middle class possibly stop existing in the next 4 years. I think it might happen. Actually, no, I'll bet on it. There will no longer be a middle class by the end of the next 4 years. It will either be lower class, as we consider it today, or hyper rich. Or, like, you know, you've got millions of dollars at least. Based? Is that based? No, it means that, like, more people are going to end up poor. Like, the middle class is going to fall out, and it's going to fall into the lower class in terms of how we typically evaluate financial stability in this country. I think the middle class will no longer exist by the end of the next 4 years, and in a bad way. Not people, like, rising up and gaining some level of, like, control of their financial and working career success, but I mean, like, just utter devastation of the economy, meaning that, like, everyone's broke, or they're hyper wealthy and benefiting from everyone being broke. America will become a feudal state. That's basically what I'm telling you guys. Like, I think America will be borderline feudal by the end of Trump's term, pretty much. It'll be like the 1870s to 1930s. There was no middle class. Yeah. Basically, like, I'm imagining the Great Depression era in my mind. Like, I'm imagining that, but for years and years under Trump. And I want that. I really want that, because I need Americans to be, like, as severely punished as possible for doing this immensely stupid and selfish decision in voting for Trump.
New York to find out.
New York City is a few hours from Washington, D.C., but the shockwaves of Trump's tariff announcement have been felt here.
And the day that we began to make America wealthy again. Reciprocal, that means they do it to us and we do it to them. Very simple, can't get any...
That's not true, by the way. The places that he tariffed were not tariffing us in many cases. He created, like, a calculation based on our trade deficit with these countries, which he repeatedly and emphatically states is not a trade deficit, it's a debt. Or in some cases, it is subsidies that we pay to that country. This is genuinely what he tells his followers a trade deficit is. Either us paying subsidies or owing a debt to another country.
Any simpler than that.
At the Caledonia Bar, the 130 Scottish whiskies they stock are likely to increase in cost. Jeff Winslow, originally from Greenock, thinks they may have to pivot towards US-produced spirits.
We'll have to increase our prices, and there's no question about that. And then, but if we don't move through the bottles, then we might just have to increase our American whiskey product, rye, bourbons, etc. And then hopefully that Scotch doesn't become obsolete or extinct.
The USA is a really important market for Scotland. Of course it is. It's the biggest economy in the world.
But a
and we
key
consume.
question is, will tariffs change the behaviour of the consumers who live here? It's not just whisky that faces challenges. Stephen Wong, a fish wholesaler on the Lower East Side of Manhattan, sells a tonne of Scottish salmon a week to Michelin-starred restaurants. Costs may go up, but he'll stick with the product.
We don't produce it or we don't aquaculture it in the United States. And a lot of these items are probably, throughout the last 30, 40 years have been from another country. We rely on a lot of wild seafood in our cuisine. But for farm stuff, salmon, not quite so much. But I understand his logic. But if there are certain things that we produce, I don't mind. But these are certain things that we just don't produce.
Wherever you move in New York, you don't have to look far to be reminded of Donald Trump and his impact. Scottish business figures want to say you're fired to his tariffs.
The tariffs are always unhelpful when it comes to doing business, but where tariffs are being applied, we want them reduced and ultimately removed. But if they are to remain in place, then it's our job as Chambers of Commerce and Business to steer our economy through these challenges.
The big
Dude, I am so thrilled. I was worried it was going to take too long. I'm not going to lie. I was worried it would take too long and that these MAGA types would be able to run their victory lap for too long before Trump would do something this devastating. But I'm glad we're getting right into it. Like, first year of his presidency, in the first 100 days, he's already destroyed the economy. Like, that is rough. He's already off to a worse start, I would think, in terms of reputation, I feel like, than Biden, who was, like, maligned relentlessly for 4 years. Zan, he doesn't understand deficit and thinks it's a debt because Republicans equate the two as the same. He thinks surplus and excess funds is the same thing because he believes what the Republicans rab on in the past. Yeah, it's wild how their entire party, an accepted party in this country that holds enough legitimacy and power, they just are always around holding power. Their entire movement stands for incorrectness. They stand for being wrong, and not just wrong, but aggressively wrong. You know what I mean? It's kind of crazy when you think about it. Like, democracy is really by the people, of the people, for the people, but the people are retarded. That quote lives in my head rent-free, and it will never not be true. It is the greatest criticism of democracy ever. Anyway, guys. With all that said, if you guys enjoyed this segment, if you found it entertaining, educational, or enjoyable in any way, then please consider hitting the like button on my stream or on this video when you watch it, whether it be live or after the fact in the future. And of course, consider commenting as well. Likes and comments are the best way to support my content because not only does it help immensely, but it's totally free and only takes a second. It costs you nothing. So I really do appreciate everybody who goes out of your way to leave that like and comment. It means a lot. And of course, if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe and ring the bell icon to turn on all notifications, so YouTube actually tells you when I go live or upload new videos in the future. So make sure you do all that if you want to. And follow my social medias down below in the description if you want to see more from me in the future on other platforms, particularly my fan Discord, where I host gaming events, call-in streams, watch parties, and movie nights every week. And if you want to support me directly, financially, be sure to donate, subscribe, or gift a sub on my website, xanderhall.com/live, or support me through YouTube, Twitch, Streamlabs, Stream Elements, Patreon, or maybe buy some custom Xander Hall merch through the Streamlabs link down below in the description. Regardless of how you support me, though, thank you so much for watching, even to the lurkers, and as always, I hope you have a good one.